Alright folks, it's time for another Tell Me I'm Wrong. I'm going to give you a quick tour of my little setup here that I got going on. Little mixer there, professional mixer. My microphone's still the same, inexpensive for now, Audio Technica. It works. And most inside baseball thing of all, see when I prop this camera up with this iPad case that I'm using here, it's hard to see because this iPad case has got a little flap on the bottom down here. It doesn't really give me the right angle. So, see, I'll put it down here. I'll sit down at the desk, and you're kind of catching the top of my head. So, I use an old 46K modem card. Actually, 56K, my bad. 56.6. Yep, old modem card, dial-up modem card. I found a use for this. It props up the back of my iPad at just the right angle. So that you catch a view of me while I'm recording my podcast. So, whoa, close-up. I'm ready for my close-up. Another week of the Tell Me I'm Wrong podcast begins. In a few moments, as soon as I get the old trustworthy application Audacity pulled up here. Welcome to another week of the Tell Me I'm Wrong webcast. I'm not hearing myself back in either output, so let's figure out why. Hear myself in there now. Weird. It was playing out to the television a minute ago, but that's okay. As long as I can hear myself in here, all is well. Welcome to the wonderful world of Windows 10, by the way. I'm using Windows 10 because I could get it on Insider Preview before it launched for free. 10 Pro, which does some really cool things that I needed to do, but it also is kind of buggy because it's Insider Preview and it's a new operating system. So those of you out there who are a little squeamish and not good at fixing things with your operating system, which I'm going to have to work on that later, I don't recommend it. Alright, let's fix my levels just a little bit here. A little less gain on the old microphone. And more of that. Welcome to another week of the Tell Me I'm Wrong webcast. And folks, I do want to say that, hey, it's been a while. It's been about a week and a half at this point because I had some technical difficulty. And as those of you who may be watching the video are aware, right now it's still not working right, but I'm going to do it anyhow. Windows 10. Ain't it fun? So this week what I'm talking about is mergers and acquisitions of telecom companies. And a little disclosure here at the top of the podcast, I'm going to tell you I'm an employee of Time Warner Cable. So anything I say is solely my opinion and not that of my employer. Duh. Because their opinion is going to be quite different than mine. Here's the thing. Time Warner Cable wants to get bigger. They want to get bigger for a pretty simple reason. Programming cost. The programming cost of providing traditional, over-the-top cable solutions is getting more and more expensive. Why is it getting more and more expensive? Because these providers see the writing on the wall, these content providers, the actual production companies, the people who put these videos and movies and TV shows out for us to watch, see the writing on the wall. They see what's going on, and they know it's not going to last. They know it's not going to stay put. We all want to watch what we want, when we want, where we want to watch it. The mantra of the cord killer, the cord cutter revolution. These people are just feeding us as much stuff as they can for the time being. The problem is it's just not a sustainable business model. They want to get bigger so they have more buying power. But buying power isn't the solution. Buying power is a band-aid. The ability to say, well, we're the second biggest cable provider in the nation, so you've got to give us a better price. You can't pull what you do with DirecTV and Dish Network and yank your channel off of us, because if you do, you lose 70% of your subscriber base. Well, guess what? The day is quickly coming where the ABCs and NBCs and CBSs and Foxes and TBSs and TNTs and so forth and so on are just going to say, well, okay, we'll provide it on the internet for $10 a month. Someone will pay for it. They've proven it. We've seen it over and over again. So, hey there, Comcast. Hey there, Charter. Hey there, Time Warner. We don't care if you don't carry our channel. Because guess what? We'll get it out there. These companies need to get smaller and more nimble. And it's hard for them because there's some federal regulation in the way, which is actually why net neutrality is kind of a good thing. It's also why Title II is a good thing. The problem with Title II is that it is a centuries-old piece of legislation actually written to control railroads of all things. They've constantly just molded and reshaped Title II into whatever they need it to be for the given century and given time. It's not applicable entirely to, it wasn't even completely applicable to telephone services when they applied it to telephone services and made them closer to what we would consider to be a utility. A lot of regulation, and there's a lot of fees on your telephone bill. Now, what comes with that is that the telephone companies, what are called local exchange carriers, or LECs in inside business terms, have to resell their services to the CLECs, which are centralized local exchange carriers, I think. I forget the exact term. But what that basically means is that they buy the spectrum. They buy and lease the usage of the local lines off of the primary exchange carrier, the local exchange carrier. For instance, Verizon is one of them. AT&T is another one. CenturyLink, formerly Qwest, formerly US West, is one of them. And these carriers all have to pay for usage. All these other carriers have to pay for the usage of their lines to provide. And you really only see these CLECs in really small communities in which it doesn't behoove the major provider to really try to compete, to really try to force these smaller providers out of business. And you see them less and less often. And in fact, a lot of them end up going out of business, and the large provider ends up being the only carrier there anyhow. There's still a few of them in existence. Now, Teton Telecom is one of them I'm aware of up in Idaho because I lived there for so long. But the idea is that these companies, these major big brand companies, they don't want to be that rental service. They don't want you to rent their spectrum. They don't want to be the pipe. They want to be the provider that they've been for all these years. They want your content coming to them branded in their name. When you turn on your television box, you see a Time Warner Cable logo. You see a Charter logo. You see a Cable One logo. You see some kind of logo. Their guide, their information. They want you to pay them for all of that to bring that content into you. But not only do they want you to pay for that, they want all these advertisers to pay them to be on that. That model is dying. That model is not sustainable. And the reason it's not sustainable is because, one, the American public is tired of being pitched. The American public wants what they want, and they research things nowadays. The idea of walking up to a car dealership and being sold the blue Ford, because the blue Ford is what we have, is kind of over. Most people who show up to a car dealership have already looked up the warranty, the miles per gallon of the vehicle, whether or not, for instance, if you're buying a Toyota Camry versus a Hyundai Elantra, you're going to look up that the Hyundai Elantra has an interference engine and the Toyota Camry doesn't. Well, what is an interference engine? Well, you're going to know that. A lot of people are going to research that kind of thing. That's a whole long story I won't get into, what an interference engine is. But if you've ever busted a timing chain, you know what it is, unfortunately. In any case, the people who really want their content, and they want it in a way that's interactive to them, that works with their lifestyle, because we're all very, very busy people. Appointment viewing, as it's so called, back in the day before DVRs existed, you would sit down at a certain time of day and watch your television show. If you were one of the lucky few who A, had a VCR and B, knew how to program the thing, maybe you would record your TV shows and watch them later. Which, by the way, that started the death of this. The idea of recording what you want and just watching it whenever you want to. That was the death knell for the cable companies. It started in the 80s. People were paying for these cable providers, and then started realizing that, hey, most of these channels that I'm getting, I don't get the HBOs and stuff. I don't get all of the channels, but the 5 channels I care about come in over the airwaves. I knew 5 or 6 people when I was a kid who had nothing but a VCR and over-the-air antenna. And it was terrible. But it was cheap. And if you didn't have a lot of money, it worked pretty well. And now we all pay all these fees for all these other services. Cable is just an extra one that we don't really need. We have Netflix. We have Hulu. We have Roku that brings these to us. We have, the Amazon Primes of the world. And more of these services emerge every day. HBO Now is now providing its service over the top. And all of these other providers are soon to follow. And it's being written into their contracts now, into their re-signing of their agreements with these cable providers and TV providers, that they are allowed to do it. Because quite honestly, are they going to say no? They do still want the content on their televisions, and if HBO